All right, guys, we're rolling. Welcome back to the Low Carb Consultant Podcast. I'm pleased to welcome Martin Silva, the founder of Optimize Your Body, transformation coach, and former pro physique competitor who has helped high-performing men and women shred fat, build lean muscle, and optimize metabolic health. With over 15 years of experience in fitness and nutrition, Martin bridges performance training, lifestyle integration, and sustainable systems that work for busy professionals. In our conversation today, we'll dive into how Martin scaled his own transformation, the key levers behind metabolic optimization, and how to build strength and longevity without sacrificing life, family, or the career. So, Martin, man, it's a pleasure to finally meet you here. I'm glad we were able to connect and get you on.
Thanks for having me on, Max. It's great to be here, my man, and appreciate the shout out there on the intro, man. That was a lovely intro. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you liked it. Awesome intros are for awesome people. And maybe before we get into all of the fun stuff, diet, exercise, training, coaching, all those different elements, would you mind giving the listeners just a real brief background on yourself, but what ultimately drove you towards this lifestyle of health and fitness?
Sure. I was fortunate where I got into health and fitness from a really young age. So I started lifting weights at the age of like 16, 17. I was always athletic as a kid, playing sports and stuff. And I got into personal training from the age of 19, 20. So I started training people from a really young age too. And I was always passionate about it. Never really, in school, never really paid that much attention. I didn't really enjoy a lot of the subjects, the usual kind of stuff you hear. But PE and the active stuff, that was always my thing, So I think it's just in my DNA. It's just what I enjoy. So yeah, started really early. So I've been in the health and fitness industry now. I'm 38 years old. So, almost 2 decades now in the industry, and almost, actually, when I think about it, that's crazy. Almost 2 decades of actually coaching people as well. So yeah, that was it. That's how I kind of got my foot in the door with the health and fitness stuff. And then, yeah, what happened as well is when I was like 16, 17, and I first started lifting weights, I actually lost someone really close to me, unfortunately. And with training, that was my therapy. So when I look back, I actually just channeled that energy more into training. So I was training pretty much, and 17, I was like Max, 16, 17, you got the testosterone levels of a gorilla, right? You can throw anything in your body, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was just like, taking it all out in the gym, and just building muscle like there was no tomorrow. And just loved it. And then I played rugby as well. So I was always into sports. Rugby was my sport. I'm from Wales in the UK, just for the audience. I live in Sydney in Australia, but I'm from the UK. We moved here almost 9 years ago. And yeah, playing rugby, I noticed I played better rugby, and obviously I was stronger and more effective on the pitch from lifting weights. So that was another bonus as well. So, yeah, it kept me going. And then if we fast forward then into my 20s, I was a face-to-face PT basically for like 12 years. So in my mid-20s then I got into bodybuilding, immersed myself into that world for about 3 years, got to the pro level doing that. I was natural, never took steroids or anything like that, but I did compete in non-tested federations. A lot of the other guys were on steroids, but I got good genetics. Like I said, I've been lifting weights for so long, I can still compete with the best, And long story short, then I ended up, struggling with a few things from bodybuilding. We can get into that if you want, the dark side of that. Binge eating, most of my peers at the time, terrible relationship with food, terrible relationships in general, terrible relationship with exercise, but they look great on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of like they're two different things. So there was a dark side to that world. So yeah, so I struggled with like a relationship with food then for about 2 years from bodybuilding, and I overcame that. And then I moved to Australia and kind of, really started working on myself. That was when I was 29 when I moved here. I'm 38 now, like I said. And yeah, and then it was just it's all about health now. I think it was actually podcasts. It was back in 2015. I started listening to podcasts from a young age. Sorry, not from a young age, from when they first came out, really. And really educating myself, getting more qualifications in the nutrition, in the field of nutrition, and really just started like stuff I already knew, but I was like everyone else. Again, we can get into this. Actually, unlearning things, Max, as you probably know, is harder than learning things. So for me, it was unlearning a lot of this BS that I was programmed from with bodybuilding. I kind of knew, eating 6 meals a day. Deep down, I was like, is this really necessary? And then I started educating myself. Oh, okay, actually, if I fast in the morning, for example, and just have 2 meals, I feel way better. Oh, muscle didn't fall off my body, because that's a fear as well. Because I was, from bodybuilding, you get, a bit of body dysmorphia naturally from competing.
Sure.
But also I was skinny before I started lifting weights. I was super skinny. So I was always really fearful of losing muscle and stuff. So then I started realizing, actually, if I focus on health and instead of being so obsessed with aesthetics, and how I looked, Max, right? It was, let's focus on, hitting some PBs in the gym and focusing on strength and performance. And then I switched my whole mindset and my whole philosophy, if you like, from being focused on physique to being healthy, performing better. And that's kind of where I'm at now in a nutshell.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to go back and talk to you about maybe that catalyst or tipping point, if you will, being in that physique competitive world. What was the tipping point that ultimately made you want to move out of the bodybuilding world, basically?
Yeah. So I really took it as far as I could take it. I went over to Canada, did this competition. It was like the pro level. And then I was like, right, yeah, this is, and even a year before that, like I said, about a year, but that was 2016, about a year before, I really was getting issues, to be honest, man. It was a lot of pain that drove it because I was overeating on the weekends. So what I would do is, even when I wasn't competing, or like even off season, I would still be, I wanted to stay lean. This is what a lot of people will resonate with, right? We always do it.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've done it as well. We look back to our leanest and we go, and we're all, even if it's subconscious, you're always comparing to that.
Sure.
So, you know what I mean? So I'm always comparing to like being shredded on stage. Then I'm like, I want to keep abs all year round. But because I was driven by the physique and because I didn't have the foundation of healthy relationship with food, eating good quality foods, whole foods at least 90% of the time, it was more about probably 70-30. I was eating 70% whole foods, 30% ultra processed foods, which is way too much. And we can get into that because that they hijack your brain. So that's what happened to me. So on the weekends, I would overeat
You just
and
binge out on
binge
Saturday.
out on the weekends, man, big time,
Yeah.
like really
Yeah.
bad. And then I would literally go to bed bloated. I'd eat like sometimes 5,000 calories literally in the evening before bed. Started getting gut issues. So it's really extreme behaviors that I used to have. And then long story short, I was like, right, I got to do something about this to answer your question. And I was like, right, I got to fix this. This is not good. And as I was going through that, like I said, I was listening to podcasts, educating myself, actually applying myself and getting different qualifications. And I was like, yeah, let's change what we're doing here because it's not working. Long story short,
Yeah, no, and I can definitely resonate with some of that. Like I've had some of those behaviors in the past too, where it's like you almost do it as like a reward, right? Like
Mm.
I've been dialed in all week long, hit all the workouts, dial in on my diet. Like I deserve, right? I deserve a cheat, or I deserve or have the ability to do this, when you're just setting yourself back multiple steps, especially like if you're wanting abs year round, but that's basically taking like multiple steps backward. And then it's like half the week you're trying to get back on track, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Friday, Saturday, you might look like the way you want to look, and then you binge out again.
Mate, you took the words out of my mouth. That was
Yeah.
exactly it in a nutshell. It was like
Yeah.
Monday to Thursday or Friday, and then I would break because I'm trying to eat, I don't know, like a bodybuilder, right? But I'm
Yeah.
restricting too much. And this is what people do, right, Max? They over
Mm.
restrict, they eat very little in the week sometimes, and then they get to the weekend, I'll just have this one thing. Before you know it, they sabotage and cancel out the whole week because the quality of the foods, whatever environment on the weekends, and they're designed to make you overeat, right? A lot of those foods. Then if you want to bring alcohol into that as well, all those kind of things. So that's what I was doing. Weekends, I would make it a Friday, boom. I would have something on Friday night, which was maybe whatever it was. And then the weekend would come around and I would just, and what I used to do as well is I used to punish myself in the gym. So I used to, because of the bodybuilding stuff, people don't understand. It's only when I reflect on this on podcasts how bad it is, bodybuilding. Like, thankfully for
Yeah.
me, it was the best thing that happened to me because I overcome a lot of stuff and struggles. But I
Sure.
look at like 80% of people who do those comps, they end up way worse off. If you didn't have any body image issues before competing, Max, you're going to have some, right? Because you're being critiqued against people all the time and being told this body part's not good enough.
Yeah,
You know
you
what I mean?
literally are being judged. That's the whole point of doing it. It's like you're
That's a
just
good point.
opening yourself up to all of this, potential criticism that can just destroy you. But it's like, yeah, that's what you're doing. You're being judged by judges, and then you're also up there probably standing around looking at these other guys like, oh man, that guy's got better arms, or man, dang, that guy's got good quads and good
Exactly.
glutes. Like shit, I don't know if I'm there yet. So like that's probably always going on in your mind. There's no way that could be
100%.
great for you.
Exactly, especially for women. I think for women in a lot of ways it's kind of even worse, right? Because women are already programmed a bit more like that,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. And yeah, all I was going to say then is I was punishing myself then in the gym. So I would do, what we used to do Friday night,
Yeah.
overeat. Right, I'm going to just punish my legs because my legs were my weaker body part for a while, and my shoulders. And then it was like, right, I'm going to just hammer my legs the next day. And it was driven without realizing at the time, right, Max, it was self-hate. And that's what people need to be really aware of because people train based on insecurities. And we all get them and we still do it, right? But if that's your main driver and you haven't got any other why to change, whether that's health related, whether it's longevity, internal confidence, energy levels, playing with your kids, whatever that is, it needs to be deeper than just, I want to look good, I want to get a six pack, because that ain't going to last and you're always going to end up disappointed.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I mean, if I'm being honest, like one of the reasons why I would say I'm so consistent and disciplined with working out is because of those internal things I have in my mind. You know, it's like I do want to have abs year round, but you know, I'm also insecure about like the size of my arms compared to like other parts of my body and things like that, you know? So it's like that is one of my main drivers. Now, could it be detrimental from a mentality standpoint? I don't know, but it's certainly, let's talk about this because it can be helpful. But I think what you're saying is the why that you have has to be much larger or stronger than just wanting bigger arms or not being happy with your chest, right?
Yeah, 100%. You nailed it, man. You nailed it.
Yeah.
And I realized recently as well, I want to be clear here as well, and for yourself is the same, right? We do these things. I think people need to really understand this as well. We do the things that we do, eating healthy most of the time, going to the gym, whatever that is, going for a run, getting good sleep, going to bed early instead of watching Netflix most of the time. I'm assuming, Max, based on how healthy you look and everything else, you probably get good sleep. So we do those things because we get rewarded for it. It's actually enjoyable to do those things, and it's great, and we're driven by that. But like you just said, right, we still want to look good, and I still have that. I don't think it's something I'll fully overcome. I still check, I'll be honest, I still check my abs probably 5 times a day in the mirror. You know what I'm saying?
I do the same shit.
Oh, man, I'm glad you're going to support me on that one, mate.
Yeah. I'll also just like put my fingers on my stomach, and like sometimes I'll just make sure I can still feel the separation, just like double check they're still there. Like, okay, good.
100%. After we had a meal, you're like, let's just check that out now. Coast is clear.
Yeah, guilty of all that stuff.
But yeah, man, so that's kind of where it's at, and having that deep internal why, and just basically connecting. I don't think it has to be that deep either. Just connecting to the value that health and fitness, eating well, getting good sleep, good lifestyle choices for the most part, by the way. It's not about being perfect, because that can go to the extreme too. It's connecting to what all those things do for your life other than just looking good. Oh, my relationship's better. My sex drive is better. You know, I'm noticing I'm making better decisions because my stress is lower now after doing that workout. It's really connecting to those things, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is actually a good place to transition. We were doing competitive physique competitions, and then we switched into this more mastering metabolic health, because I feel like you often talk about mastering metabolic health rather than just like fat loss. So like, now that you made this transition, what does for you, like what does like metabolic health mean to you? And why do you think it's often ignored in performance nutrition or other areas?
Yeah, so that's a good one. So, for example, when I take clients on, I get them to do this like basic metabolic assessment, and it's just a snapshot of their overall health. So when I look at metabolic health, we can look at the body composition. You know, if you've got a lot of visceral fats, if you're under muscled, which is a big problem, right? So I think that's a bigger problem than what they find now, you know, people who are really skinny and weak versus someone who's maybe got more body fat, but more muscle and physical strength, that actually live longer, they're healthier, they're generally more insulin sensitive, all those kind of things. So to put it simply, that's a big indicator, right? Your body composition. But then it's just the health markers. So I'll get people to just give themselves a basic score, right? Of their sleep out of 10, the regularity of their sleep, stress levels, all these important health markers are going to play a massive part on your metabolic rate, right? Your body's ability to assimilate calories, whether it's going to store, you know, whether it's going to get more efficient at storing calories, being more efficient with calories and storing body fat, or assimilating those calories and using them, you know, basically increasing your calorie output. So obviously strength training plays a big part in that as well. So if I was to put it real simple though, I would just say it's the energy that you consume, your body's ability, how efficient is your body with basically metabolizing those foods and that energy and utilizing it properly, as opposed to, you know, building up excess fat. And this is where the ultra processed foods come into it as well, right? They do recent studies on this. Not only do they make you overeat, like I said, but actually your body now, they find, actually assimilates the calories differently. It's so complex, right? You know yourself, right? You've spoken to some of the experts. Human metabolism is just so complex next to the human brain. It's just they're still figuring it out. They still haven't got a clue, right? Even with all the technology. So put it simply, how is your body utilizing the calories that you're eating? What's the quality of the food like? And I think the big rocks that are overlooked with metabolic health is sleep and stress. The way I describe it is it's almost like a pyramid, right? You've got those two at the bottom. That's the foundation. If you've got, you know, the bathtub analogy where you got too much stress coming in, you got work stress, personal stress, then you train in. A lot of people overtrain as well.
Yeah.
They don't realize it, but they overtrain. They get stuck in that recovery trap. The bathtub's the stress bucket is filling up with water and just overflowing nonstop. And people are not even aware of that. That's going to play a massive part on your metabolic health. And then if you add poor sleep on top of that, your decision making with food, your recovery from training, which comes above that foundation, is all going to be impacted,
So you mentioned something I think kind of critical here, because a lot of people, my YouTube comments will talk about like, the calories. Calories are calories. You're overeating calories, you're going to gain weight. You're undereating calories, you're going to lose weight. And a lot of people in the YouTube comments will say like, well, calories are calories. And it's like, no, not really, right? If you have 500 calories of like an ultra processed food, let's just say like donuts or candy or something, that's completely different than 500 calories of grilled chicken breast. One is nutrient dense, but also with chicken breast, it's very difficult to like overeat lean protein source. It is incredibly easy to overeat 500 calories worth of an ultra processed food or donuts or candy or whatever. And the brain, going back to what you're saying, the brain looks at those things as differently. It's not necessarily equal calories. Like one is going to make you significantly hungrier for longer periods of time, the donuts, right? But if you have like a whole foods based approach, the body looks at the calorie sources completely differently and utilizes them differently, and different things happen.
And I've seen this, and this is a thing where it comes to wisdom. And, obviously I coach people online now. So over the last 5 years, it's more nutrition and lifestyle. I used to PT in the gym, and it was just the training in the gym primarily. And, you can kind of give people advice in the gym, but now it's kind of the stuff outside of the gym, right? Which is the hardest stuff.
Yeah.
And all that to say, I've seen it in clients. I've seen clients who maybe struggle with eating a bit too much ultra processed foods. And there's two things here, right? In America in particular, I don't know if the audience knows this, but they're allowed to be at least around about, give or take, 20% out with calories. So that means to sell products, right? Anything that comes out of a packet or ultra processed foods, they're going to put it under, right? They're not going to put it over because they want to sell more products. So they're going to put it 20% under. So if we just assume those foods, number one, they're going to have more calories anyway. That's a likelihood, about 20% more. But number two, they've done a few different studies on this now, and they find that people actually gain weight when the calories and the macros were actually controlled for. The people eating the UPF, the ultra processed foods, gain weight. They've done a few different ones. I think one was here in Australia. They gained basically, it was 500 calories more a day they ate, going back to your point, because they're highly palatable. So they did a cross study. They crossed the groups over as well, right? To, make sure you teased out the individual variants. And they basically found that the ultra processed food group ate like 500 calories more a day. So they ate more. But they did another one recently where they found they controlled everything. And the people in the ultra processed food group, they still gain weight. Now, we could say it's what I said earlier, that they're not really tracking the calories properly, and they're underestimating their calories. It could be that, but I would guess that there's a lot more going on there. And they can't really do studies on these things. It's so complex, the metabolism.
Yeah.
They can't figure, but they're getting there now. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out. And I honestly think we're going to see a lot more of that, when it comes to there's more going on with your body's ability to actually metabolize the calories from chemicals, which makes sense, right? Because it's not food. We call it UPF. It's not even food. It's just chemical. Yeah. It's just edible, like chemicals which have been put into an edible form for you to eat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think the big thing is dopamine. Like what's crazy is when you're walking down, let's say the chips aisle at the store, it's like, man, you got to understand that there are like hundreds of millions of dollars put behind the engineering of those foods, how they're designed, the packaging, the marketing team, the scientists that actually design the food to make it super palatable, like the crunch on the chips, right? Like it's really all designed to just skyrocket like your dopamine. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is they basically just hijack your brain. Yeah, man, that's the stuff you got to stay away from. And there's a lot of money behind it.
Definitely, man. And it's so simple, right, Max? If you, let's say you were to ask me this now, right? I know you're not, but anyone in the audience, if anyone asked me, right, what's the number one advice you could give on food? If I could give one piece, I would like to say the protein piece, like we were touching on then, having high protein, hitting a protein target. That's like the game. If you were going to add something in to your diet and you were going to focus on hitting a target, if you can focus on hitting a certain amount of protein, which we can get to, but if you can just remove ultra processed foods, even if you can do that for start with 7 days, because people don't realize what's ultra processed as well, right? There's a lot of things which people are not aware of, which they slip little chemicals in there, whether that be natural flavors, whether it be emulsifier. Now you can take this too far. I'm not perfect with this, by the way, but even if you did that as a challenge, start with 7 days, I'm just going to eat single ingredient foods, right? If we just class whole foods as single, and if you go for 30 days, it'll change your life.
Oh, 1,000%. One big tip is people should just get comfortable looking at the ingredients on the backs of packages. So if there's a paragraph of ingredients, look for something else. Or like ground beef, for instance, the only ingredient is ground beef. Like if you look at the Beyond Meat, the fake meat, it's literally got a paragraph of shit that is literally in there. It's not food. That's what's
100%.
crazy. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to choose the foods with as few ingredients as possible, that would be a route. Another route could be, okay, if it comes in a package and it's got a barcode on it, or a box, I'm not going to eat that food, right? You could go that route. Or I've had Tanner Shuck on here. He's a big like Instagram influencer. He competed in the CrossFit Games. But he's got a really good rule of thumb. Like if it wasn't around 200 years ago and it didn't come from an animal, or if it wasn't directly grown in the ground, do not eat it. And it's like, okay, if you really want to boil it down that simply, that's pretty good advice, right?
That's solid advice.
You're basically just eating a whole foods based approach, and you're gonna, no matter what your goal is, you're just gonna feel so much better just by getting out all that crap.
100%, and that goes full circle back to what we were saying, right? You'll start noticing, because the main value people place on food, and we do this as well, if we're honest, right? We all like to enjoy the taste of our foods, but when you do the reps and you actually, let's say, even if you did 30 days, right, Max, of whole foods, single ingredient foods, you're gonna then naturally start attaching other values to food other than just how it tastes. You go, oh, I ate this food. Oh, I noticed my gut was inflamed when I brought this food back in, for example, right? Let's say you did 30 days, you bought some of the, oh, wow, I didn't notice that I was getting bloated. I noticed my weight went up by like 2-3 kilos in it. Wow, I noticed my sleep wasn't as, oh, my energy. Then you start connecting to the value of the food and you're like, okay, let me go back to this. And then it's almost like over time then I had to rewire my brain, right? Like you said about hijacking, but I had to literally rewire my brain from it being hijacked from those foods. And it happens faster than what you think when you take the approach. Like again, there's a approach I take with clients. I've coached so many people. I'm sure you can probably relate to this. My journey, for example, was not consciously cut them all out. It was to add in more whole foods. And actually fiber as well really helped at the time, just vegetables, cooking them properly and stuff. Now that's kind of another conversation, but you've got to be mindful of like gut health and digestion, right? So there's a lot of nuance there, but long story short, I was eating more vegetables, I was eating more chicken breasts, chicken thighs even. I actually started having, because I was, chicken breast from bodybuilding, chicken thighs. I was just eating more, I started having more grass-fed beef instead of just any old beef, and just eating more of those whole foods. And then naturally, I wanted more of them. And what I also noticed as well, Max, was I was having like ultra processed whey protein. That's another thing I think people need to be aware of as well. I'm sure a lot of people listening will already be aware of this actually, but protein on a packet, for example, right? How many times have you got this? Oh, it's high protein food. It's got to be good. People in the shop, they pick it up. Oh, high protein. Yeah, I'll get some of that, put that in the basket. No, that's just clever marketing, right? It's not like a magical macronutrient protein. If you can get it through whole foods. And what I found was I was having whey protein powder, for example. It had all the 3 artificial sweeteners in there. And it had, like you said earlier, it had like 50 ingredients in it. Raspberry Ripple was the flavor, right? It tasted phenomenal. I was having that 3 times a day when I was binge eating, right? And I was having all the ultra, and then when I started having it from whole meat, more of my protein from whole meat, whole foods, single ingredient foods, naturally I started wanting more of those foods. I started noticing my gut was better. Like I said, I started fasting in the mornings, and it just changes everything. So I think add in rather than subtracting for most people, and then maybe we can get to the protein thing, consistently hitting a protein target and doing that through whole meat. I mean, that changes a lot within itself. But I think people lie to themselves and they say, oh, I'm having enough protein. And most of the time they're, on the weekends, they might grossly undereat. Yeah. So there's that consistency piece.
Yeah, I want to definitely get into how you design like training and nutrition systems for like the clients that you're working with right now. But just out of curiosity, since we're talking about this, what is like your day-to-day look like now in terms of your diet? Like when do you work out? How long do you fast for? When do you typically eat? What do you eat now? How many meals a day? Like, can you walk us through like the day in the life of Martin?
Yeah, let me first get onto my vice, right, that I lean on. Right, it's my dark chocolate. You know what I'm saying? I find it hard to dark chocolate, my man. Right, and black coffee. You know what I'm saying? That's my. I know the audience some of them probably rolling their eyes, going, "Dark chocolate, really, mate?" You know what I mean? Is that your vice? But 85 to 90%. So what I'll do, right, is I will train in the morning, and then I'll lately I've actually been eating
fasted training.
Yeah, fasted training in the morning. Yep, don't eat before training.
Yeah.
I train first thing. Boom. That's the first. I think maybe we can walk through this slowly, right? I'll get up in the morning. First thing I'll do is hydrate with the electrolytes, and this is another game changer, right, for clients. It's like have water before you have your coffee. Right. Because we can say what we're doing, right, Max, and what we're doing, it takes time to get to the level we're at where it's like kind of easy for us to do all these things. It takes time, right? Focus on 1 or 2 things at a time. A liter of water, ideally with salt and lemon or electrolytes before you have your coffee, even just doing that. The difference people notice is crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because they're actually
100%.
hydrating, and your adrenal system, your cortisol levels are already through the roof when you wake up. So you're kind of adding fuel to the fire a bit doing that, just having coffee straight away and not hydrating. And obviously we know it's not just about drinking water, it's about getting into the cells. So anyway, that's what I'll do. I'll have a liter of water upon waking. I'll have that mixed with electrolytes and creatine and my
Yep.
citrulline. Then I'll just go train. Or like I said earlier, off air, I'll go to the beach once a week in the week and just go for a quick swim. I'll have my caffeine. I used to time that and have it like 90 minutes after waking, but now I just have it before training. I'll have my water first, my electrolytes, and then I'll just get the coffee down me, go train. And then generally I'll fast then. So it depends. Maybe 50% of the time, maybe it's come down a bit now. Probably about 30% of the time I won't eat anything until about midday or 1 p.m. Then I'll just have my 2 meals. But now actually I've noticed I've been trying to like switch that, because that's kind of another thing as well. I think it's good to throw a curveball. It's kind of like sometimes with training, for example, you're not going to keep doing the same thing trainer wise because your body will adapt. I think it's a good thing to do sometimes as well, especially with the level we're at, right? So, okay, if I have the 3 meals, how do I feel? I notice I had a bit more energy or whatever. So anyway, so I'll sometimes fast, other times I'll just have, I'll sometimes have Greek yogurt just with this good quality whey protein that I have after training. If I've got a lot of stuff on, I want to have a chance to eat. Or sometimes, full transparency, I'll have my dark chocolate. I'll have my 85 or 90% dark chocolate, 50 to 60 grams with my my coffee in the morning, maybe an hour or two after training. And then I'll break my fast with a proper meal then at lunchtime. So generally, I'll have my first meal about midday. My last meal then is I try to finish eating by about 5:30 p.m. So I give it at least, you want to give it at least 3 hours. I try to give it at least 4 hours because I track my sleep using one of these bloody Oura-rings. I got the 8 sleep. I got it all going on, Max.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell, my man. I have 2 black coffees in the morning, and that's it really in a nutshell.
Yeah, what's funny is you and I have basically identical routines. Same thing. Wake up
Wow.
in the morning, 20 ounces of water, creatine, salt, electrolytes. Then I have my coffee. I only do about 2 cups of coffee. And then I work out fasted. And then so I'm a 2 meal a day guy. So I'll have like a lunch and then I'll have a dinner, and that's basically it. But what I have noticed is, especially when I do podcasts like this in the middle of the day, if I have like a decently sized lunch before a podcast, it can get me just a little bit sleepy. You know what I mean? If the meal's
Yes.
really big, it's not like the best thing to do before like doing a podcast where I want to be kind of sharp and on it. So what I'll sometimes do on certain days is I'll just break up that big lunch and I'll have too many lunches, like a few hours apart, maybe 2 or 3 hours apart. And I just feel so much better. And then I'll have just like a massive dinner, and I'll try to squeeze in 200 grams of protein throughout the entire day. But that's typically how I do. But you and I are kind of on the same wavelength there.
That's it, man. That's it. And I'll do the
Yeah.
same thing. My little thing is I get this good quality kind of organic whole milk yogurt, so I'll have that with some, like I say, it's like really good quality whey protein that I get. So I'll just mix it with that. That's kind of like, I have that each day, and I'll have that with some fruit. Sometimes I just have, to be honest, I was trying to be in a calorie deficit recently. Well, I say trying, I was in a calorie deficit for a month or two, and I was just having one meal. Like lunchtime, I was having one meal with the meat, the avocado, all the protein and fats together in a meal.
Yeah.
And then I would just have sometimes just the whey protein, yogurt, berries and stuff in the evening, just literally that. But I would get all the whole foods into that first meal. But I wouldn't recommend that for most. Generally, I'll have, 2 meals, 2 proper meals. But yeah, and it's like, yourself, everyone's different, right? But I think when you get to a point, I think one thing that, I don't know about yourself, but one thing that kind of, I don't recommend fasting is what I'm trying to say to most people. And the reason being is because most people haven't built that foundation with the quality of foods they're eating, number one, and number two, having enough protein each day, having adequate protein. So when you fast, for the average person, I guess me and you, we can easily have a lot of meat on one meal. Most people, they struggle to get the protein in. Also, it can add fuel to the fire, particularly I notice with females. If they just fast, a lot of people I coach, they're basically like they're entrepreneurs and stuff. They work a lot of hours, long story short. So if they just don't eat in the morning, sometimes the day will get away from them, and then they just like they'll have a small meal in the daytime, and they're just running on cortisol and adrenaline. They get home ravenous. So I think a lot of people should actually probably just plan ahead, get a good quality meal planned, before they just decide they just wake up and just go with the flow. You know what I'm saying? Having that
Oh,
structure.
for sure. Yeah. Well, and speaking of just women in general, I had Dr. Jen on here, and she's into women's health and hormone and all those types of things. But because women have a cycle, their hormone structure is completely different than men's hormone structure, where it's like we're kind of on a daily cycle where it's like testosterone increases and then it dips down towards the end of the day. And then it's basically our body does that over and over and over again. But women have like 4 different cycles, if you will, within the month that they're going through,
Of
right?
course.
Because of their period and
menstrual
stuff.
cycle.
But it's like
Yeah.
what she was saying was, if you're a woman and you're trying to fast, you have to be smart about it and fast at specific times throughout the cycle, as well as structure your training around what phase you're in of your cycle. Because in some phases of your cycle, it's not ideal to do high intensity workouts, or the energy might not be there to hit big lifts or strength training and hit PRs. So you have to kind of like change your workout schedule based off where you're at or what phase you're in your cycle. So women are a completely different beast.
Different animal, man. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%, and that's bang on. I think for any females, for any guys listening as well, right? It's good to be aware of this. If you got a wife, you know what I mean. It's leading up to the ovulation part. Generally, that's when they're going to get more strength. Progesterone and estrogen, I believe, are a bit higher and stuff. Then when you got the menstruation, like that 2 weeks leading up to that, if I've got that right, if I've got that a little bit wrong, I'm pretty sure that's right. I get the names confused, but leading up to the period, obviously PMS, all those kind of things, the body's already speaking to them, losing blood as well, hormone changes. That's not a good time. I say to, my female, that's not a good time to generally, for most, obviously there is variance, to be in a deficit, right? Because that's an added stress. People forget about that. I want to lose weight. I want to get in the deficit. Okay, what stress have you already got coming in? If you're leading up to menstruation for a female, for example, that's a massive stress. Probably not the best time to be hitting PBs in the gym and being in the deficit,
Yeah, you might want to lay off the boot camps that week.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Lay off the CrossFit that week, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. In terms of, I wanted to talk to you about this because I saw somewhere on Instagram, I think it was, so you only train, is this accurate? You're only training about 3 hours a week?
Yes, that's right. That's right. So yeah, I've changed that a little bit now. So I was just training 3 hours a week. I actually did. And I think this is a really good question, because I think people need to understand this, that, okay, number one, sometimes less is more for most people, because the day and age we live in, man, people don't realize the amount of stress they're under. And simple things, they keep their phone in the bedroom and stuff. They check their phone as soon as they wake up, take themselves out of that calm state. You bring a screen to your face, anxiety, cortisol up. You take it away, generally you feel a bit better. You get outside, you drop the stress hormones. So there's all these stresses coming in, and then most people are sleep deprived and everything else. And training is another added stress. So a lot of people can actually, I find with a lot of clients actually, and research shows this now as well, in terms of training frequency, the more often you can send a muscle building signal, providing you don't overdo it with intensity and volume, the better, really. So doing a little bit every day, even if it's like 15 to 20 minutes in a lot of cases, is actually going to be better, at least as a starting point or for a period of time for results. So this is what I was doing. I was just doing basically like 3 sessions. I was doing August, I did 2 full body sessions a week, and the rest were just like bands. Like 15 minutes, back to my point, that frequency, rubber resistance bands, low intensity, just getting a pump on, maintaining strength. I'm not going to build any muscle doing that. And just again, to boost energy and everything else. And it worked well, to be honest. I mean, you can maintain, I could easily maintain doing that. In fact, I actually built a little bit, but obviously I've got a lot of experience with lifting. So right now though, I've ramped that up a little bit. So I'm doing more like around about, say, 4 hours a week now, about 4 hours a week. But I'll build muscle doing that. So yeah, so about 4 hours a week. I've just switched to doing like an upper lower split. So 4 gym sessions, 2 upper bodies, and then 2 legs and ab sessions basically. And that's it. But generally, man, most people, I would say 80 to even 90% of people get better results training the full body. So that's what, even I'll do that, right? I'll do maybe 70% of the year, I'll be training the full body, even 80%. I'll do full body 3 times per week. And then if I do anything extra on the days in between, if I want to go to the gym, it'll just be like a light 30 minutes, just a light pump on machines, low intensity again. And that actually aids recovery if you get the sweet spot. But that type of training is too advanced for most. I have to build people up to that level, because people treat those workouts in between like, I'm going to push myself. It's like, no. That's just literally a light mobility and pump up session. But three full bodies a week for most people, I get better results. It's not just the fact that they're hitting the body parts. They're hitting every body part 3 times per week, right? So you have to hit every body part 2 to 3 times per week to get maximum results. So that's 3 times if you're doing the full body. Depending on what level you're at, even twice. If you're someone who's a beginner, twice a week will even be enough, right, to get some results. And then also it's the behavioral aspect. I think this is overlooked as well. So if you do the full body, number one, it's harder to overtrain if you have the proper program. If you just do, say, 1 exercise per body part, let's just say, and you're doing the compound lifts 3 times per week, you're going to get great results. Any more than 5 sets per body part is actually overkill for most people. And I would actually argue 3 to 4 sets for the average person who've already got all this stress coming in. Like you said, like they've got a lot of work stuff, working long hours. That's going to be enough, just doing 3 or 4 sets each body part. So spreading that volume out, the research is clear on this, is if let's say you to do, 15 sets a week, right? Rather than doing the 15 sets on legs, for example, on a Monday, and then wait until the next week to do it again. If you spread that out, so you did say 5 sets on the legs on the Monday, 5 sets Wednesday, 5 sets Friday, so you do 15 spread out, way better results because you're sending that muscle building signal more frequently. So everything I do with myself now is like I've fine-tuned everything. So I know, and I always look at with clients, I always look at how can we get maximum results for minimum time. I think that's what people need to be looking at, not just like, because we get addicted to the feeling, don't we, Max? It is like a drug, right? And it's great because we need to balance our mental health. But I call it cortisol junkies. You've been there, I know you have, right? Because you used to do CrossFit. I used to be a cortisol junkie, right? Chasing that feeling. I want to hammer my legs, like I said earlier. I can't walk for 3 days. It's just dumb, man. Let's just be honest. Like, when you're chasing that feeling, you're not being smart with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to dive a little bit more into how you develop training systems for clients and stuff, because I know for you specifically, it sounds like to me, your demographic, and I might be wrong here, so correct me, but it sounds like you're working with like typically higher achievers, busy people. They've got careers, jobs, families, kids, not a lot of time. So how do you design training and nutrition protocols that fit into a chaotic work schedule without burning them out and having it be manageable?
Yeah. This is a good one because I work with generally people who are already in motion. So they've already got some experience with training. They're probably training consistently, but they want to get to that next level. So it's more fine tuning. So I try and make sure they spend the same amount of time, if not less, but get better results with the training piece. So how I'll program that obviously depends on the person, but I'll give you an example. I got one client now, she trains at home. That's another thing. You don't have to go to the gym if you do it properly.
You don't.
You don't have to, man. Like people put all these barriers in the way of themselves.
Getting a home gym and investing in a home gym, especially if you're busy, you have a career, you got kids, married, whatever it is, investing in a home gym is literally the best thing you can do. It will save you so much time driving back and forth to the gym. You could just do a quick warm up, go into the garage, work out 20, 30 minutes, and then boom, back to your day, knock it out. It's literally, people got to invest in that thing, man.
100%, man. Bang on, man. Bang on. So how I program the training, right? Generally, I'm always looking at, number one, what can they stick to? And how much volume can they manage? And it's like for most people I train, like we just said, type A's, we always want to do more. We think more is better. Actually, no, more is not always better, doing it the right way instead of trying to do more for the sake of it. So, I'll give you an example of one client now. 30 minutes a week, 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week, right? So it's 2 hours a week. It's all she does. She's had great results. Now, she hadn't been lifting for a while, so obviously you can get a better response doing that. For other clients who are more advanced and they're lifting already, like most of them, then it's a case of, right, like I said, let's do the same amount. Let's switch up the signal. Let's change the signal. So at the moment, they might be doing, an upper lower split, or they might be doing a bro split in some cases. Okay, well, for this person, full body's definitely going to be better. How about with the 5 workouts you're doing or the 4 workouts you're doing? Let's do maybe 3 full bodies and then 1 light session. Or we could do 1 upper, 1 lower, and 2 full bodies. So I'm always looking at that frequency. Let's try and hit those body part more frequency with less volume per session. So you're not hammering the body part. You're just spreading it out more and you're being smarter. And that way you can recover and not be stuck in the recovery trap. Now I can get into the nutrition piece, but if you had any more on that.
I had a quick question on that one, and then we'll touch on nutrition. So typically in terms of like frequency, are you having clients doing something every day or resting, taking a rest day when they feel like they need it? Or do you have built-in rest days when you're programming workouts for clients?
Yeah. So I'd say on average, most clients are doing about 4 sessions a week, either in the gym.
Okay. Got it.
3. Actually, no, I'd say a big chunk of them are just doing 3 a week, the 3 full bodies that I mentioned, because they get great results and they don't, it doesn't damage recovery and damage their energy or anything else. So they can keep that going, and they actually every 4 weeks, give or take, depending on the person, will change the training stimulus. So it might be, and this is actually a good point as well for people, is like focus on one thing, right? What people do is they don't understand the intention of what they're doing. So with my clients, let's say I'll give them, each program will last, let's say about 12 weeks, a training program. Every 4 weeks, I'll change the training stimulus. So then, you can get the same results if you were to do, let's say you do high reps on a Monday, you do low reps on a Wednesday where you're lifting heavy, and you did hypertrophy reps on a Friday where that's more like 8 to 12 reps and slow reps. There's 3 different things there, right? Different stimuluses, but you can't gauge your progress when you're doing that, right? So I prefer to do 4 weeks. We're going to do strength. We're going to focus on getting stronger, adding weight to the bar, lower reps. You're going to build muscle from doing that. And that's what I find with most people. They've never actually done that properly. And they get the best because they always think, the bodybuilding thing, they've got us, haven't they, in the mind, Max? It's like 8 to 12 reps, that's the best for building muscle. Actually, the best for building muscle is probably the one you're not doing, Yeah.
So, and also too, your body adapts. So if you've been working
100%.
out like 8 to 12 reps for, 5 years, because that's how you've been doing it, man. And other times too, like going super high reps, like for building the legs, doing like sets of 20s on the back squat, that will crush you. And then
100%.
and then going in the opposite direction and just doing like 3 to 5 reps for just strength. It's like, yeah, a lot of the times it's just switching up the amount of reps that you're doing, increasing weight, decreasing rate, but that can get you a lot of results because your body naturally just really wants to acclimate to what you're doing and acclimate as quickly as possible. But that's why a lot of times I feel like people plateau, right?
100%. Yeah, massively, man. And there's such a
Yeah.
fine line between recovery and adaptation. So a lot of people, they train, and I used to do this as well. I fell into this trap. How sore they are. That's how they judge their workout. All right, I was sore for like 2 days. Great workout. Or I couldn't walk for 3 days. Amazing workout. Now, actually, it's probably the opposite. So you should feel like you've done something the next day. You might feel a bit of soreness for maybe a day or two. Any longer than a day or two, most of the time you've crossed the line. And then what your body's trying to do is it's trying to recover. It can't recover and adapt at the same time. You want your body to adapt. You want to actually, cause some mechanical tension. You want to add volume, whether you add in a bit more weight to the bar, like I said, or a few more reps, or another overlooked way to add volume is to slow the reps down. I think that's the most underrated tool, man. No one does it, bro. That's the number. If anyone can take anything away, even if you just slow down your last 3 reps, I get that with clients. I'll get them, okay, I get, because it can take long as well doing the session. Even the last 3 reps, if you go, right, I'm going to do like a 4 or 5 second negative even, on each set.
Oh, yeah.
Game
Oh,
changer.
100%. Are you familiar with Fred Hahn? Have you heard of Fred Hahn?
No, I can't say I have, man.
In the States, he has like these slow burn personal training studios, but he's all about slow resistance training. So literally, like if I'm doing bicep curls, roughly like 10 seconds up and 10 seconds down. You might get maybe 4 to 6 reps, depending on what weight you choose. But he says you get, and I've heard a lot of other people talk about this on Instagram and just different like exercise scientists, you get a lot of the benefit from the actual eccentric portion of the movement, lowering the weight, but under control and super slow. And if you try it, like it feels amazing. Like instead of just dropping the weight down, if you control the rep, you can get super strong and you don't need to use a ton of weight.
Mate, you nailed it. And that goes back to what I said, right? Intention. Just think about that one thing. What's my intention here? Am I trying to lift heavier now? Am I doing like a lower rep range or trying to, hit some PBs? Great. Good thing. Or it's not the same thing. This is kind of the opposite what we're saying now. Time and attention, your ass is not lifting very heavy with that stuff. Let me tell you now. You take the weight right down, especially guys. Guys are a nightmare for this. Guys, put your ego aside. Take the weight down by like 30 to 50%. And just do like, because you hit the nail on the head is when you do this, the eccentric portion, so the lower end portion of the rep is actually where you're getting most of the results. People just kind of throw that part of the rep away. Blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a super important piece. Yeah,
Definitely,
I don't know why people think that. Maybe it's because like, I think a lot of times people just assume like, oh, the bench or whatever, I want to be able to push up as much weight as possible or curl as much weight as possible. It's like, no, man, it's the lowering that gets you the results.
And I tell you what, right, a good example of this is for anyone listening, and even you, Max, right? Look around the gym. How many people do you see doing it? 0, pretty much.
No. Yeah.
This goes to show it's underrated, right?
Yeah. 100%. No, I think we're in total agreement there. What about so switching over to like the nutrition side of things, how do you consult with clients on nutrition? Because I know you've talked a lot about, based off some of the research I've done on you, like you're into reverse dieting or leveraging smart carb introduction, hormone regulation. So let's talk about like what types of, and obviously I know everyone's going to be a little bit different based off like, do we need carbs? Are they an athlete? Can we reel the carbs back in? How do you typically navigate the nutrition part with clients?
So I'll start with, I always say, Max, I want to meet the person where they're at, right? And you'll know yourself, right? A good coach is always going to meet the individual where they're at. So for me, I'll go, okay, a good starting point. Now, this is not a destination with tracking food, right? No one wants to track food forever. I don't agree with tracking as a destination. I say to my clients, most of them anyway, depending, this is the starting point, right? So for the first 2 to 4 weeks, I'll get them to track food, at least first 2 to 4 weeks, again, so I can meet them where they're at. Otherwise, it's just guesswork.
Yeah, and then you don't know. Yeah.
You don't know. Exactly. Now, I do have some clients who are like, they're so busy and overwhelmed with things that's just going to be an added stress. So what I'll do instead is I'll say, right, at least to start with, just take pictures of most of your meals. And we'll just upload that to the app, and then we'll show them how to construct a meal. Obviously, I put meal plans together as well. But the way I describe it is a meal plan is like giving a man a fish, right? You feed him for a day. Tracking food, at least even if it's just tracking protein, so you're aware of how much protein you're eating. It's teaching them how to fish. You're getting the awareness.
Yes.
Right?
I was literally just thinking of that quote today for some reason. Like,
really?
Teach a man to fish, right? Well, how does the quote go? It's catch a fish or something, but teach a man
Yeah.
for a fish, he can fish for a lifetime. I forgot
That's it,
exactly how it
feeding for a
was.
lifetime. That's why, yeah,
Ex-
teach it. Well, yeah, I forgot now myself. Yeah, obviously, basically, you teach a man how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, right? That's kind of like tracking because you're getting
Yeah,
awareness, you're learning, and
yeah,
you're naturally going to eat less. And this is even me, Max, right? When I track food, I tracked for about 6 years on and off, right? You can imagine with all the bodybuilding stuff and that. And I went
yep.
back to it the other month for 2 months. I think I tracked for just to try and get into a little bit of a deficit, challenge myself. Hadn't been in a deficit for a while. I thought, man, it's about time. So I did it. And just by tracking, I ate 20 to 30% less just by tracking. So for a lot of people out there, I know what it's like. Oh, I haven't got the time and blah, blah, blah. Most of you have got the time. It's 5-10 minutes out of your day. But then
Yeah.
the other thing is people don't track properly. I think that is really important. And even if you're not tracking, there's a lot of value to weigh in your food. Ideally do both for 2 to 4
I
weeks.
do.
That's what I like to get clients to do. And I do that. I don't know about yourself, Max, but even now I'm not tracking anymore, right? And I'll track literally 1 or 2 months of the year just to kind of recalibrate, but weigh in my meat, weigh in my food. I like to stay on the game with that, right? Because then you become intuitive, don't you? You know what, for example, 500 grams of meat looks like. If you eat out or you're on the move, you know what 300 grams of potato looks like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like what I typically do is like I'll get out a bowl and I'll weigh out 340 grams of Greek yogurt because I know that's going to have like 36 grams of protein in it,
There
2
we go.
servings, and then I add some protein to that. But like, yeah, like you gotta the weighing of the food is critical, so like okay, like how many grams does this many potatoes have in it? So then you can calculate like the carbohydrates in the potato, or like if you're the chicken breast, if you're meal prepping, you're tossing chicken onto a plate. Well, if you have specific protein goals, like how in the hell are you going to know? And I think going back to what you're saying and why track is important, most people just grossly undercalculate how much
100%.
protein that they're getting. And if they were to track, then they would probably be pretty surprised to say like, oh, damn, I am not even close to what I thought I was eating in terms of protein.
10. You nailed that one. That happens every single time where people are like, yeah, I'm having enough protein, I'm doing this and that. And then, it might be the weekends and they fall really short. And the thing is, people, again, it's having that awareness of the calories as well. It's like when you're under eating protein, your body's always trying to kind of find that homeostasis. It's trying to, you're not going to go, your body doesn't want you to go hungry, right? That's why you have to be really smart with your approach when it comes to losing weight. So you're going to replace the calories then generally with more fats and carbs, and naturally you're going to probably eat a bit more then when you do that. So yeah, just back to what you said. Yeah, so I'll start off with tracking. And like I say, meal plan as well. I'll show them how to hit whatever calories and macros. But then it's a case of coaching them on, and when we go to carbs and stuff, right? So, for example, I had one client, right, over the first kind of 90 days, we had her in a deficit. And from there on, with the metabolic health and metabolism, I always want to get people to a place where the only way it feels easy to stay lean and healthy and metabolically healthy all year round is to build as much muscle as possible. That's number one. Because you know what I mean? Like the research shows it only burns like, 6 to 13 calories per pound of muscle. Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, you probably know Gabrielle Lyons, but even she says like, no, they can't really measure that. And I've calculated it's way more than that with clients. So the whole pursuit of building muscle, having high protein as well, the thermic effect from that, there's all these things. And just to build muscle is hard as well, right? So you got to get good sleep. All these health things that you have to focus on. To get stronger is hard. When you get stronger, your metabolism speeds up. So this one client, she lost weight for that first 90 days. Now I've got a reverse diet in. So to lose that weight, it was tracking for the most part. It was hitting a protein target, not really focusing too much on fats and carbs, to be honest. Now, naturally, I'm always looking at the quality of the food and the quality of the carbohydrates. So she was naturally having quite low carbs anyway. She was only having about 100 to 150 grams, which is relatively low for a lot of people. And she was getting it all through Whole Foods. And then I was trying to time it around the training as well, which can help as well. So having the carb hit after training to replenish, aid recovery and stuff like that. But then it's building up. So the reverse dieting piece is what most people need to do at some point. Now, some people, when I take them on, they need to go straight into that because they've done so much damage in some ways over the years from maybe yo-yo dieting, losing weight, gaining it back, that their body's just got so efficient with calories and it's got better at storing fat. Because every time you lose a lot of fat and gain it back, the body just basically gets smarter and it just cares about survival.
Yeah.
So that's why people say, oh, it gets harder every time because your body's getting smarter. It's going, okay, and this new research shows that your body actually can create permanent fat cells as well when you do that. So then it'll be the reverse dieting piece then, which is essentially slowly increasing calories. And I tend to time that with the training stimulus. So every 4 weeks, like I said, roughly every 4 weeks, we'll change the training stimulus. And as you do that, then the metabolism speeds up. It's like a curveball you throw in,
Hmm.
and the metabolism has to adapt again. And then I increase the calories to coincide with that. And those calories get partitioned then into muscle gain and
Mm.
strength. And people don't realize that, like, and a lot of people have a lot of fear. Oh, if I eat more, I'm going to get fat. Now, you can. It's not as simple, right, man, as just eating more. To do that whole process, it has to be very strategic, and you have to do it. You have to build that foundation with the quality of food, like we said first, and the
Well,
protein.
and it also sounds like to me, if you want to call your metabolism your engine, it kind of just
Yes.
depends on where your engine is at right now and the
Hmm.
capacity it's at, right? So if you build your engine up over, a handful of weeks working with you, then you have the capacity to bring in more fuel and utilize that fuel to see more progress, whether it's PRs in the gym, adding more muscle mass, wherever the case is. But you kind of have to work with the engine that you've got and where it's at. You just can't start eating a shitload of food if you have a small engine with a small capacity, basically, because you're just going to gain weight. So you got to kind of build the engine up.
100%, man. And you got to make sure
Yeah.
that you're eating enough. And I like to just lead people with a simple mantra, right? It's I eat to build. If you focus on
Mm.
that, if you eat to build muscle, then you will have you'll shift your mindset. And again, if you're adding weight to the bar, if you can just, because a lot of people are so focused on the body, and I have to constantly have this conversation with clients, right? It gets challenging because, we're looking at the stats, we're looking at progress photos, we're looking at the body composition. But I try and make that literally 10 to 20% of their focus. The other 80, 90% is the habits, right? Whether that
Hmm.
be the water, the protein target, sleep, whatever habits we're focusing on, the strength in the gym, adding weight to the bar, or the intention of what you're doing. Like you said, the time and attention. And this is my journey as well, right? Like I say, this is the only way. You have to focus on those things. And naturally, then obviously you have to be aware of the amount you eat. And you can't just like eat loads more and, just go to the gym and hope for the best, right? It's not like a wish thing. But if you eat to build and you focus on strength, you focus on recovery and not, skipping meals all the time and leaving it to chance and under eating protein, you will look and feel way better as a byproduct, right? You just got to be consistent with one path. And I think where people go wrong, my man, is they have to go and learn a lot of stuff, right?
Oh,
Got to
yeah.
do cardio to lose fat. Okay, I'm not losing fat. I'm going to go do a bunch of cardio. Okay, where did that get you
Yeah.
before? Right, cardio is good. I'm not great for your heart and longevity and VO2 max. Throwing some of that in there, a little tiny bit, but resistance training covers most of that. And then obviously
Yeah.
fueling your body to perform and eat well and recover properly takes care of most things if you're consistent for long periods of time, man. It doesn't happen overnight, mate. As you know, it's not a slow thing building muscle and building that metabolism up. For some people, a reverse diet would last, even 6 to 12 months for some people. Other people, it might be, 3 to 6 months. Depends on where they're at with their engine, as you said.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. So well said. And I know we're actually coming up here on time. I do have some rapid fire questions for you, Martin, that I
Yeah,
like to do
man.
at the end. At the end of some of
I
these
love these.
podcasts with guests. So, and they don't necessarily need rapid fire answers. So feel free to elaborate on some of these if you want. But first question for you: what's the biggest fat loss myth you wish people would stop believing?
I want to go over to the cardio thing, but it has to be something related to nutrition, right? Interestingly, I still think, no, it's not the carbs. It's not the low carbs. It's definitely not the low carb thing because people
Hmm.
still think that. Surprising, right? Even with all the information out there, people still think eating carbs. Yeah, I think it's got to be up there. So people think, right? Kind of goes back to what we were saying, but when I have sugar, how many times you hear this? As soon as I bring sugar back in or bring the carbs back in, I just gain all the weight back. All carbs are not treated equally, right? A potato, in fact, a carbohydrate, starchy carbohydrate like a potato is actually the most satiating food on the planet,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's yeah, like the potato diet. You probably heard of that, right?
Yep. Yep.
Have you ever seen anyone, gain 20 pounds from eating potatoes every day and avoiding ultra processed foods?
No, and it's hard. Like if you going back to what we were saying about weighing out, sometimes when I'm bringing in carbs into my diet and I'll have like 50 to 75 grams of potatoes, like 50 to 75 grams of carbohydrates. Like I'm trying to get 50 to 75 grams of carbohydrate from potato. That's like 340 or I want to say 400 grams of actual potato, like weighed out. It's a lot of food. It's a lot of food to put down. So to your point, it's like incredibly satiating, but it's still not crazy on the carbohydrate scale. It's not a ton amount of carbs, but it's going to fill you up, right? It's a large
Definitely.
volume of food you're going to have to put down just to get 50 grams of carbs from potatoes.
That's bang on, man. That's bang on. So that's what
Yeah.
I would say. Basically, is what you said. It's not the carbs and it's not the sugar that make you gain weight, right? It's overeating calories, and it's definitely not going to be from eating potatoes and berries. It's going to be from eating what we talked about earlier: fine sugars, processed foods, which have not just got sugar. It's like you don't see people eating like bowls of white sugar, right? No, it's not
Yeah.
the sugar. It's the combination, like you said earlier, the texture, the fats, the carbs. The quality of the food was slipping, which is what made you not overeat calories. And back to our point earlier, there's probably more going on there in terms of your body's ability to metabolize that, right? So don't be afraid of carbohydrates. That is not the enemy. The enemy is the ultra processed foods that are designed to make you overeat. Whole foods, high protein, focus on that as number one. So that's definitely a fat loss myth for sure, man.
Absolutely. Well said. If someone is training hard but still not seeing results, what's usually the problem?
Yeah, this is most people that I take on. Usually it is because, number one, they've either been restricting calories too much, they've been too afraid to eat a bit more and build muscle and do a building phase. That within itself is one of the biggest ones, because people I train, they might have got themselves, a lot of them have got themselves into half decent shape, to be fair, and they want to get to the next level, but they've been stuck on the same kind of calories, the same way of thinking, just afraid to change what they're doing with nutrition because they've had some success with it. And that same strategy, which gets you maybe a little bit lean and gets you some results, is going to be a completely different strategy for you to get to the next level. So doing a build-in phase, reverse diet, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing really, over a period of, let's just say, even on average 3 months, depending on the person, and focus on that. Even if they did a month, right? Even in the first month, if they eat a little bit more, and they change up the training stimulus, they train smart, because that training stimulus is very nuanced. People overlook this. Very nuanced. If you get that right, and then maybe you bump calories up a little bit and focus on building muscle, or at least eat enough to build, and make sure you're having enough protein. Sometimes you don't even need to be in a surplus. You just need to be having enough protein, depending on your body type. And that changes everything, man. I think that's number one, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. What's one mistake people make when trying to get lean that absolutely destroys their metabolism?
Is they try following a short-term plan. So they will be overweight and they'll try and follow something short-term. Now, I'm not against any, I'm not going to like target any specific diets, but, let's use the carnivore diet, for example, right? Now, this is a whole food diet, right? Which is great. It's way better than most people doing before. And out of all diets, you're going to get the essential nutrients you need and stuff. But most people might go from eating, rubbish quality foods, like we said, and basically being 20 pounds overweight to, I'm going to follow carnivore. We'll get this in January now, right? Going to follow this diet or that diet. Now, it's great if you can eat whole foods for 30 days, great. That can change everything, but they don't have a long-term approach. So getting lean, that might get you lean short-term, but the second you go back to eating and living like you were before, you're going to gain the weight back. So the problem is then, it's not getting lean, it's actually staying lean, which is what most people struggle with. So following any said diets generally for most, now there's always a small percentage, I'm not speaking to them, where they follow carnivore, works long-term, I'm all for it. But most people, diets work until they don't work, essentially, for most people, right? They work until they stop working.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, obviously we're on the Low Carb Consultant Podcast, but I always say diets are tools, right? And you kind of, I feel like you kind of look at them at the same way, the way that you have like periodization with your clients. Like there's a building phase, there's the different phases. You have to kind of do that with the body, because the body's naturally going to acclimate and really work hard to acclimate to whatever it is that you're doing. So I feel like you have to have these periods in which you're increasing calories, decreasing calories, because that's just going to help no matter what over the long term from a sustainability standpoint. That's what's going to help things to be sustainable for the long run. But it's also going to help you see progress consistently over the long run too, when you have some periodization in there and eating like cyclically,
100%. Yeah. Metabolic flexibility, man, is really, really important. 100%.
Yeah. Last question here, and I feel like this is going to be the banger question because you've coached hundreds of people, hundreds of transformations, maybe even more, thousands at this point. What's the one habit that separates the successful from the unsuccessful?
That's a good one. I would say the one habit, it's got to be sleep, man. It's got to be sleep.
Really?
Yeah. It's got to be that, because that's the foundation. So what I find is, people who don't, they just overlook, a lot of people, they're like, give me the program, give me this, give me that, training, nutrition, let's go. And they just overlook sleep. And then they might get some short-term success, but over time, it's not sustainable if your sleep is not, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you haven't got regularity with your sleep, you're not going to bed at the same time and getting up roughly the same time and having that, the regularity is one of the most important things for circadian rhythm, recovery, all those kind of things, and then having the right duration and really having a practice, coming away from electronics like an hour before bed and focusing on that quality of sleep and getting enough sleep. At some point you come undone, So I'd have to say that sleep is a big one, because it's not sustainable for you to make consistently good decisions if you're leaving your sleep to chance. But really, I would say I would like to tie in another one there as well, and I would say it's with food, and it's the psychological barriers mindset that holds people back.
Eh,
It's not being prepared to eat to build muscle for a period of time. They always want
yeah.
to lose that fat. They always want to lose the weight. You've spent a number of years where you're at. It's going to take more time for you to reverse what you've just done, right? In terms of getting your body more efficient with calories. So it's the mindset shift of eating to build and perform, where I think people kind of come undone. They overlook that piece and they want results yesterday instead of being in it for the long haul,
Yeah, and if I could also maybe even throw one in there, because you and I were literally talking about this a little earlier, it's having the right why. What are your thoughts on having the right why? Because I feel like that's what's going to ultimately help people to continue on, no matter the circumstance, what their day throws at them. If like they got a busy schedule, if the why's strong enough, right? How do you feel about having a strong why?
A stronger why is everything, man. That's everything, 100%. And that's why on the first call that I have with people, I always delve into that, right? I want to know the real reason to change. Because the thing
Mm,
is, it just gets too difficult, man. When life gets in the way, things get tough. If it's not intrinsic motivation, if you haven't got to drive more than just losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds, then it's not going to happen. Unfortunately, a lot of people wait until they get like health scares and then they get a why then. Don't wait
yeah.
until that point. It's looking at, right, okay, I think a better question people to ask themselves is, right, what'll happen? It's a crazy question, really, but 10 years from now, where will I be if I continue doing what I'm doing? Right, where
Mm,
will you be 10 years from now, realistically? If you're going to be, optimized and perfect and everything's going to be bang on great, you're probably the minority, right? But a lot of people, they know if they keep like putting off the stuff they should be doing to get to the next level with their health, with their habits, then ultimately 10 years from now, as age kicks in and everything else, you're not going to be in the best position. And also, who else would be affected? I think another good question in terms of the why is, who else would be affected if I stay as I am, right? If I continue doing what I'm doing with my lifestyle, with my habits, with not taking care of myself as much as I could, who else is going to be affected? My kids, how are they going to be affected? My
mm,
partner. So asking
yeah.
yourself those questions, that kind of unlocks or kind of like makes you aware of the why a bit more, that reason to change.
Absolutely. So well said. Anything new coming up for you?
Nothing massively new, my man, really, to kind of write home about. But I do have a trip to Brazil. I'm going to be getting married actually at the beginning of January. So that is kind
Oh,
of something I want to touch on.
congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that, buddy. So we're going to Brazil, and it's looking to be on January the 5th, although that could change because Brazilians don't plan stuff. They just go with the flow.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting thing. But in terms of clients and impact and where I'm at with Optimize Your Body, the transformation program, just looking to really take that to the next level, essentially, and keep building the community and keep working with people that really want to get to the next level, right? And want to really, because that extra 10 to 20%, what I see is an extra 10 to 20% of energy, decision making with food, internal confidence. It improves every aspect of, my clients' lives and people's lives. So I
Mhm.
love helping people get there and fine tuning things. So that's what I'm going to just keep doing, man. I still like yourself, still super passionate about helping people on, one-to-one level. And that's kind of where I'm going, really, man.
So cool. Awesome. So speaking of some of that, where can people find you online, get in contact with you, all of that stuff?
So you can find me on Instagram at Martin Silva Fitness. So that's where I post a lot of the short form stuff. Definitely go and check out the long form stuff on YouTube. So it's my channel is Martin Silva Fitness as well on YouTube. And I share the podcast onto my YouTube channel, which is called Optimize Your Body. So it's Optimize Your Body on Spotify and all your audio platforms. But just go for Martin Silva Fitness, and all the podcasts are shared in video form on there, really. And the website is optimizeyourbody.com if they want to go and check out more of my, my stuff, and they can get like a free metabolic assessment and stuff on there as well.
Very good. And I'll put all of that stuff in the show notes as well. So all that information will be available to the guest listing if they want to check any of that out and work with you. But Martin, man, honestly, this was a fun conversation. It was a pleasure to meet you. This was fantastic. So I appreciate you coming on, and to everyone else listening to the Low Carb Consultant Podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
man. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, bud. Chat soon.